The world of Valora was burning. Fire and smoke covered the golden sky that once shined with peace. The ground trembled under the sound of distant explosions. Great towers of crystal and steel had fallen, and the once beautiful alien city now looked like a graveyard of broken dreams. Captain Elias Ward, a human soldier from Earth, moved through the ruins with a limp. His armor was cracked, his breathing heavy, and his visor was covered in dust. The battle had ended hours ago, but death still whispered in the wind. The peace mission had turned into a massacre. Elias's oxygen tank blinked red. His radio was dead, his squad gone. He was the last one left. Each step he took felt heavier, his muscles screaming, his lungs begging for air. Still, he kept moving. Humans never stopped, not even when everything else did. Through the smoke and the broken lights, he saw something move. At first, he thought it was another soldier. But as he got closer, his heart almost stopped. A figure was kneeling in the middle of the rubble. Her armor, once bright gold, was torn apart. Her long white hair fell over her shoulders like silk stained with ash. She was bleeding, her hands shaking. A faint blue glow flickered from the wounds on her chest. She looked up at him, her silver eyes weak but still shining. It was her, the Princess of Valora, the one they had come to protect, the one whose voice had promised peace between her kind and humanity. Now she was dying on her knees. Elias dropped to the ground beside her, pulling open his medkit. He didn't know much about alien biology, but he couldn't stand there and do nothing. "Stay still," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "You're going to be okay." Her lips moved weakly, her voice soft like wind. "Why, help me." Elias froze for a second. The question hit him harder than he expected. He looked at her pale face, her shaking body. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't an enemy. She was just someone who didn't deserve to die like this. "Because that's what we do," he said softly. "Humans don't walk away." He tore a bandage from his kit, trying to stop the bleeding. But her skin shimmered strangely under his hands. Her body wasn't reacting right. The air around her was cold, almost electric. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes rolled back. "It's too late," she whispered. "My body can't heal. The toxin from the blast." Elias's heart raced. No, stay with me." He grabbed another vial, adrenaline, and injected it into her arm, even though he wasn't sure it would work on her species. For a moment, her pulse fluttered, then faded again. He pressed his hand to her chest, his own glove soaked with her glowing blue blood. "Come on," he said through gritted teeth. "Breathe!" But she didn't move. Her head fell to the side. Her silver eyes turned dull. The alien princess, the hope of two worlds, was gone. Elias sat there, the silence pressing down on him. He felt his throat tighten. He didn't even know her name, but her death felt heavier than all the ruins around him. He closed his eyes, resting his forehead against her armor. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I tried." The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the ashes of war. Elias sat alone with the body of a being who had believed in peace, something he thought humanity could never have. But as he sat there, a soft light began to pulse under her skin again. Faint, like a heartbeat trying to return. Elias opened his eyes. "What the hell?" He saw the faint glow spreading from her veins as if her body was fighting to hold on. Something deep inside him refused to give up. Maybe there was still a chance. Maybe she could live. He reached for his last emergency vial, one no human had ever used on an alien before. It was a small cylinder filled with glowing nanofluid, designed to restart human cells to rebuild what was lost. It was dangerous, unpredictable, but it was all he had left. He looked down at her lifeless face, his voice breaking. "You believed in peace. You don't get to die like this." And without hesitation, Elias injected the fluid into her heart. The world around him held its breath. The air turned still. Then her body jerked violently, eyes snapping open, glowing brighter than before. Something impossible was happening, and in that moment, Elias realized. This war wasn't over. It was only just beginning. For a long moment, Elias thought he was seeing things. The alien princess's body shook violently as the blue light spread through her veins. Her chest rose with a sharp gasp and her silver eyes shot open. A soft blue flame seemed to dance behind them. She clutched at her chest, her breathing fast and uneven. Elias stepped back in shock, watching as the nanofluid worked its way through her body. The wounds on her arms began to close. Her skin shimmered, the pale color returning. What? What's happening to you? Elias whispered. Her fingers dug into the dirt. Her voice trembled, filled with confusion and fear. What did you do to me, human? Elias swallowed hard. I used something from my medkit. A nanofluid. It's supposed to heal humans, not... He paused, watching the glow under her skin. Not you. The princess tried to stand, but her body was weak. Her armor clattered as she fell back onto her knees. I was dying, she whispered. I could feel it, and now, I feel everything. Elias moved closer, carefully helping her up. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time he saw tears forming. They shimmered like liquid crystal. Why would you risk that? She asked softly. You didn't even know if it would kill me. Elias met her gaze, his expression steady but tired. Because you asked for help. That answer seemed to shake her more than anything else. Her people, the Zarathi, were proud. They did not beg, they did not cry, and they never asked for help. Especially not from a human. Yet here she was, alive because one refused to let her die. She looked around at the destroyed city, the bodies of her guards, the burning palaces. Her voice broke as she spoke. My people, they are all gone. The city, my mother. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. I lost my people too, my whole squad. Her eyes met his again. Then we are both alone. There was silence between them for a while. The fires in the distance burned low, and the sound of falling metal echoed through the wind. The night sky above them shimmered faintly, still carrying the glow of ruined ships. Elias tore a piece of cloth from his uniform and wrapped it around her arm where her armor was broken. She didn't pull away. Instead, she watched him carefully as if trying to understand this strange creature who cared so deeply for an enemy. Finally, she spoke again, her voice gentle but curious. What are you called, human? Elias Ward, he replied. Captain. Earth Defense Corps. She nodded slowly. Elias, my name is Lyra. Princess Lyra Zerath of the Zarathi Empire. Her words carried sadness more than pride. Titles didn't matter anymore. Her empire was gone. Elias gave a small nod. Then Lyra, we need to get out of here before another strike hits. But she shook her head. No one will come for me. The empire has fallen. My people will think I'm dead. Elias stared at her for a long moment. Then we make our own way. He pulled a damaged rifle from the ground and looked toward the dark horizon. The smoke was thinning and the cold wind brushed against his face. We find shelter, food, maybe a ship. We survive. Lyra looked at him, this human soldier covered in dirt, blood, and hope, and felt something strange stir in her chest. He was fragile, mortal, and yet he spoke as if giving orders to fate itself. Humans, she whispered. You never give up, do you? Elias smiled faintly. Not our style. She watched him limp forward, each step pained but determined. For the first time she followed, not as a princess but as someone who had seen death and been pulled back from it. The blue glow in her veins pulsed again, brighter this time. Elias noticed but said nothing. He didn't know what the nanofluid had done to her, but something deep inside him sensed it wasn't over. As they moved through the ruins, the ground trembled once more. In the distance, a massive explosion lit the night sky. Another ship falling. Lyra turned to Elias, her expression hardening. They'll come for us, she said. Both our kinds. Elias nodded. Then let them. We'll be ready. And as the two survivors disappeared into the darkness, neither of them knew that the thing flowing through her veins, the human nanofluid, had done more than save her life. It had changed her forever. The night on Valora was cold and endless. The wind howled through the shattered towers, carrying with it the smell of smoke and metal. Elias and Lyra found shelter inside the remains of an old temple, its golden walls now blackened by fire. Elias sat near a broken column, trying to fix the torn parts of his armor. His legs still hurt badly, but he didn't complain. Across from him, Lyra sat quietly, her silver eyes reflecting the dim blue light glowing faintly from her veins. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence between them was heavy, filled with too many memories they both wanted to forget. Finally, Lyra broke it. This feeling, it doesn't stop. Elias looked up from his tools. What do you mean? She lifted her hand. The faint blue light shimmered under her skin, running through her arm like tiny rivers of energy. The glow, it hasn't faded. I can feel it moving inside me like fire that doesn't burn. Elias frowned, watching carefully. That's the nanofluid, he said slowly. It's repairing your cells, rebuilding them over and over. It's meant to keep a human alive after fatal damage. Lyra's voice was soft but filled with unease. But I'm not human. Elias sighed, running a tired hand through his hair. I know, I didn't have a choice. You were dying and it was all I had. She stared at her glowing hands for a moment, then looked up at him. You risked everything to save me. You could have left me there and no one would have blamed you. Elias met her gaze. Maybe. But I'm not no one. Something warm flickered in her chest. For so long, her people had seen humans as lesser beings, reckless, emotional, and fragile. Yet this fragile creature had done something no Zarathi ever would. He had saved an enemy simply because it was right. Her hand trembled as she touched her chest. When I died, I saw darkness, she whispered. But then I felt something pulling me back. It wasn't my gods and it wasn't my will. It was you, your light, your human heart. Elias chuckled softly. I don't know about light. Maybe just stubbornness. Lyra smiled faintly. Perhaps they are the same thing. But beneath her calm voice, fear still grew. She could feel the nanofluid spreading deeper, connecting to her very soul. Her heartbeat no longer felt natural. It was too steady, too strong. She didn't feel hunger or fatigue. It was as if her body was no longer hers. She looked at Elias again, her eyes filled with quiet dread. What if this thing inside me doesn't stop? What if it turns me into something else? Elias paused, staring at the small fire they had lit between them. Then we deal with it, he said simply. Together, the word together hit something deep inside her. It sounded strange, almost impossible, yet comforting. For the first time since the war began, she didn't feel completely alone. Outside, the sky rumbled with thunder. They could hear ships flying far above, scanning for survivors. Both human and Zarathi patrols were out there. If either found them, it would mean death. Elias leaned back against the cold stone, exhaustion pulling at his eyes. We rest here for a while, he said. Tomorrow we move toward the ridge. Maybe we can find a signal beacon. Lyra nodded, though her mind was far from rest. She looked down at her glowing veins once more. The light pulsed in rhythm with Elias's breathing, as if the fluid inside her was linked to him somehow. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost afraid. Elias, if this fluid keeps me alive forever, what will it take from me? He didn't answer right away. He opened his eyes slowly, meeting her gaze across the dying fire. Everything has a cost, he said. But maybe this time it gave us both a chance. Lyra held his eyes for a long time. There was truth in his words, a quiet strength she couldn't ignore. As Elias drifted into sleep, she sat watching him. The glow in her body was no longer frightening. It felt connected, like part of his life had become hers. She pressed her hand against her heart, whispering to herself, whatever I've become, I'll carry it with purpose. Outside, the night of Valora continued to burn, but within the ruins, a fragile bond, born of death and defiance, had begun to grow. And the universe had just witnessed the first spark of something it would remember forever. The sun rose weakly over Valora, casting golden light over a world of ruins. Smoke still rose from the broken city, but inside the ancient temple, silence ruled. Elias woke first, his body stiff and aching. He sat up slowly, wincing as the pain in his leg returned. Across from him, Lyra stood near the entrance, her white hair flowing in the wind. She was staring at her hands again. The faint blue glow had not faded. It pulsed gently beneath her skin like the rhythm of a living star. When she turned to face him, her eyes shone brighter than before. It doesn't stop, Elias, she said softly. I haven't slept. I don't feel hunger or pain. It's as if my body no longer belongs to me. Elias got to his feet, limping toward her. Maybe it's still repairing you, he said carefully. Maybe it just takes time. She shook her head. No, it's something else. I can feel it, power, warmth, energy flowing through me. Like the universe itself is breathing inside my veins. Elias looked at her, unsure whether to be amazed or afraid. You mean the fluid is still changing you? Lyra nodded slowly. It's more than healing. It's rewriting me. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the wind whispering through the cracks in the temple walls. Elias could see the conflict in her eyes. Fear, wonder, and something else. Lyra walked to a nearby wall where old carvings of her ancestors were half buried under ash. "My people believed that the gods touched us once," she said quietly. "That their light ran through our blood. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe that light was always waiting for something else to awaken it." Elias smiled faintly. Maybe it was waiting for a little human stubbornness. Her lips curved into a soft smile, though her eyes were still sad. "You think this is a gift," she said. "But what if it's a curse?" Elias looked around the ruined temple, the ashes of both their people. "A curse is only a curse if you let it destroy you," he said gently. "Maybe you were meant to survive for something greater." Lyra turned toward him, the morning light touching her face. "You speak as if you believe in fate." He gave a small shrug. "No, I just believe that sometimes the right person lives for a reason." For a long time she said nothing. Then suddenly she walked into the open sunlight and extended her hand toward the rising sun. The light reflected off her skin and her body began to shimmer. Elias watched in awe as her wounds vanished completely, even the old scars she had carried since childhood. Her armor gleamed as if newly forged. She looked almost divine, untouched by time, untouchable by death. "Elias," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think I understand now. Your nanofluid didn't just heal me, it bonded with me. It made me part human, part Zerathi. Something new." Elias's throat tightened. "Then you're immortal," she finished softly. "I can feel it. My heart doesn't beat like before. My body is alive, but it will never age, never break." He stared at her in silence. For a soldier who had watched so many die, the thought of immortality felt both beautiful and terrible. Lyra lowered her hand and looked at him, her expression filled with emotion. "Do you understand what this means? My people will see me as a monster. Your people will call me an experiment. I belong nowhere now." Elias walked closer, his voice steady and kind. "You belong here right now. With me." Her eyes softened. She stepped closer until they stood face to face, surrounded by sunlight and ruin. "You gave me life," she whispered. "And now it burns brighter than I can bear." Elias smiled faintly. "Then use it, Lyra. Use it to build something better. For both of us." She reached out and touched his hand, the blue light flowing faintly into his skin. It was warm, alive. For a heartbeat he felt something impossible. Her energy, her life, touching his own. In that moment the wind seemed to still. The fires of Valora burned lower, and from the ashes of a fallen world, a bond stronger than war, stronger than death began to form. Lyra looked out toward the horizon. "If I am truly immortal," she said softly, "then I will carry your people and mine within me. I will make sure neither is forgotten." Elias nodded. "Then that's our promise." And under the rising sun of a broken world, a human soldier and an immortal princess began the journey that would change the stars forever. Days turned into weeks as Elias and Lyra wandered across the broken lands of Valora. The once beautiful planet had become a graveyard. The wind carried the ashes of fallen cities, and silence followed them wherever they went. Elias's body grew weaker with each passing day. His wounds healed slowly, but the pain never left. Lyra, however, no longer felt pain. Her strength grew. Her eyes glowed softly even in darkness, and her movements were light, almost otherworldly. She often walked ahead of him, scanning the horizon for danger. Sometimes when she turned back, her heart ached, seeing him limp behind her. The man who gave her life was fading away little by little. One morning they finally saw it. A ship. A large rescue vessel landing near the ruins of the capital. The silver insignia on its hull shimmered in the sunlight. It was Zerathi. Lyra froze. Her hands trembled slightly. "It's my people," she whispered. Elias gave a tired smile. "Then go. They'll take you home." She looked at him, her expression torn. "You saved me, Elias. I won't leave you." He shook his head gently. "You don't have a choice. You belong with them. I'm just a human soldier, half dead and lost. Go. Live." Lyra wanted to argue, but deep inside she knew he was right. She was their princess. She had to show them that life still existed, that hope hadn't died completely. Together they walked toward the ship. The Zerathi soldiers aimed their weapons at Elias the moment they saw him. He raised his hands, saying nothing. Then a hologram flickered to life above the landing platform. It was the Empress, Lyra's mother. Her face was cold, regal, and full of sorrow. "Lyra Zerath," she said in a sharp voice. "My daughter died in battle. What stands before me now is not her." Lyra's eyes widened. "Mother, it's me," she cried. "I survived. The human saved me." "Enough!" the Empress roared. "Your blood no longer runs pure. I can see the human corruption in your body. You carry his poison. You are no longer Zarathi." Lyra's heart broke. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "He didn't poison me. He saved me. Without him I would be nothing but dust." The Empress's gaze turned to Elias, filled with disgust. "You dare touch the royal blood of Valora? You dare defile my daughter?" Elias clenched his jaw. "I didn't defile anything. I saved her life when no one else could. But the Empress's soldiers didn't listen. They opened fire." Elias grabbed Lyra and pushed her behind a fallen wall. The blasts tore through the ground around them. The smell of plasma filled the air. Lyra's heart raced as she saw Elias clutch his side. He was bleeding again. "Elias," she screamed, pulling him close. He gritted his teeth, trying to hold back the pain. "Don't let them win." Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the man who had given everything for her. She could feel his life slipping away, his pulse growing weaker with every breath. Rage boiled inside her. The blue glow in her veins flared brighter, spreading through her whole body like fire. The ground around her began to tremble. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice echoing like thunder. The Zarathi soldiers froze as a blinding light exploded from her body. It swept through the ruins, knocking everyone to the ground. When the light faded, Lyra stood in the center, untouched, her eyes glowing like twin stars. Even the Empress's hologram flickered, unstable. What have you become?" she whispered in shock. Lyra looked down at her trembling hands, then at Elias lying in her arms. "Something you'll never understand," she said softly. "Something human." She lifted Elias gently and turned away from the ship. "If I'm no longer your daughter," she said, her voice breaking, "then I'll be something greater. I'll be the bridge between our worlds." The Empress said nothing as Lyra disappeared into the burning horizon, carrying the wounded human who had given her everything. That day, the Zarathi Empire lost their princess. But the galaxy gained something far more powerful, an immortal who carried the heart of humanity inside her. The sun of Valora hung low, burning red through the clouds of ash. Lyra walked through the wasteland, carrying Elias in her arms. His breathing was shallow, his eyes half closed. Each step she took left glowing footprints on the cracked ground. They found an old human outpost buried under dust and vines. Lyra laid Elias on a broken cot, her glowing hands trying to stop the bleeding, but nothing worked. His human body was too fragile. "Don't speak," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "You'll be fine. I'll find help." Elias gave a weak laugh. "Help? From who?" "Your people tried to kill us." Lyra's lips trembled. "Then I'll save you myself. I'll give you my strength, my light, my life if I have to." He shook his head slowly. "No, Lyra, you already gave me everything." "You gave me purpose." His voice was faint, almost a whisper lost in the wind. "Before I met you, I was just a soldier. I fought because that's what I was told to do. But you made me see something worth fighting for, something beautiful." Lyra's tears fell onto his chest, glowing softly as they touched his skin. "You can't leave me, Elias. I can't be immortal without you." He smiled weakly, his hand trembling as he brushed a tear from her cheek. "You'll live, and that's enough for me." The world around them was quiet. Only the sound of the dying wind remained. Lyra felt her heart breaking, a pain deeper than any wound. She wanted to scream, but all she could do was hold him tighter. Then she remembered the day he saved her life. The strange power in his blood that gave her immortality. Maybe it could work again. Her hands glowed brighter as she pressed them over his wound. "Please take it," she whispered desperately. "Take my life. Take my power. Just live." The blue light spread from her palms, flowing into him. For a moment it seemed to work. His breathing grew stronger, his heart steadier. Lyra smiled through her tears. But then, Elias opened his eyes and gently pushed her hands away. "No," he said softly. "It's not meant for me." The glow around him faded, but his expression stayed calm, peaceful. "You're the future now, Lyra. You have something no one else does. Human compassion and alien strength. Don't waste it on me." Lyra shook her head furiously. "I can't lose you." He smiled. "You won't, I'll always be here." He touched her chest, right where her heart glowed faintly. "Right here." And then his hand fell. Lyra's world shattered. The glow around her dimmed and silence filled the air. She sat there for hours, unmoving, holding the man who had given her everything. When night fell, she walked outside. The stars above Valora looked different now, distant but full of promise. She built a small monument out of broken stone and placed his dog tag on top. On it were 2 words, Elias Cross, human. She stood there, her long silver hair blowing in the cold wind. "You gave me life," she whispered. "Now I'll give it meaning." As she looked up at the stars, her eyes began to glow again, but this time the color was different. Not blue like the Zerathi. It was golden like sunlight, like his. And then something happened. The air around her shimmered. A pulse of energy rippled through the sky, spreading far beyond Valora. All across the galaxy, ancient sensors lit up. Beacons long forgotten began to glow. The light from Valora reached distant worlds, human and alien alike. It carried a message, not in words, but in feeling, hope, courage, love. The human essence that had merged with something far greater. In that moment, Lyra understood. Elias wasn't truly gone. His legacy had become part of her, part of the universe itself. She was no longer just a princess. She was the bridge between life and eternity, the living proof that humanity's heart could change even the coldest stars. And as the winds carried her voice through the ruins, she whispered one last promise to the sky. "I'll make sure they remember you. Elias, I'll make sure they remember humanity." Years passed. The story of the glowing woman of Valora spread across the stars. Some said she was a ghost. Some said she was a goddess. But those who saw her knew one truth: she was real. And she carried the light of 2 worlds inside her. Lyra walked through planets torn by war, famine, and hate. Wherever she went, life began to grow again. The sick were healed by her touch. The dying were comforted by her voice. And every time she looked up at the stars, she thought of him, Elias Cross, the man who gave her a soul. Humanity had rebuilt slowly after the Great War. They had lost many, but they endured, as they always did. When Lyra finally revealed herself to them, the humans did not fear her. They welcomed her. She landed on Earth for the first time, blue oceans, green fields, and endless sky. The air tasted of home. She walked through a small memorial park, where names of fallen soldiers were carved in stone. And there she found it, Elias's name. Her fingers traced the letters softly. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You said humanity would rise again." And it did. People gathered around her, curious about the glowing woman who spoke with such sadness and grace. She smiled at them, an immortal among mortals, and said, "Your kind gave me life. Let me give something back." That day she stood before the leaders of both species, human and Zerathi. The great hall was silent as her voice echoed across the chamber. "For too long," she said, "our worlds have lived in fear. We called each other monsters. We burned planets and called it peace. But humanity showed me something different." She paused, looking at the crowd. "They showed me mercy when I deserved death. They shared their life when I had none. A human gave me more than survival. He gave me purpose." The room was still. Even the Empress of Zerath, older now and humbled by loss, bowed her head in silence. Lyra continued, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I am both Zerathi and human now. My blood carries your science and my heart carries their courage. If you call that corruption, then let the universe be corrupted by love." The hall filled with whispers, then cheers. For the first time in history, humans and Zerathi stood together, not as enemies but as one people. From that day on, Lyra became the symbol of unity. She traveled between worlds, carrying the stories of both species. Her presence ended wars before they began. She taught the Zerathi compassion and the humans patience. And everywhere she went, she told them one story, the story of a dying soldier who saved a princess with nothing but his blood and his heart. Centuries passed. Lyra never aged. Her light never dimmed. But sometimes, when the stars were quiet, she would stand on the edge of a cliff and look at the night sky. She would whisper his name softly as if he could still hear her. "Elias," she would say, "I kept your promise. They remember you." One night, as she stood beneath the stars, a strange warmth filled the air. A soft breeze brushed against her face, and for a moment she swore she heard his voice, gentle, familiar, and full of love. "I'm proud of you, Lyra." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "You never really left, did you?" The wind carried no answer, only peace. She closed her eyes and let the light within her glow brighter than ever before. Her body shimmered, becoming one with the stars above, and in that light, the galaxy saw something it had never seen before. A union of two worlds, two hearts and two souls. From then on, across every human in Zarathi world, children were told a story of a princess who was dying on her knees, of a soldier whose blood made her immortal, and of the love that changed the stars themselves. Because in the end, it wasn't power, weapons, or empires that saved the galaxy. It was something far greater. It was humanity.